Working with nulls is really pretty straightforward and simple once you understand exactly what a null is. And I talked about nulls at length in a video entitled Understanding Null. So you may want to go look that video up. I think it was a little earlier in the course. If you haven't watched it, or if you feel a little bit kind of shady about what a null is and why it does what it does. But the bottom line is null cannot be considered equal to anything. Null is an unknown value. How would we ever know if anything equaled an unknown value, right? So there are two functions that you can use in TransactSQL to work with nulls in queries. One is called isNull, and you can also do isNotNull. That's the one we'll be working with here. But I do want you to know there is one called isNull with no space that is a different keyword that provides different functionalities. They're pretty cool. I'm not going to go into them right here, but you can go look at that in the documentation if you would like. So isNull and isNotNull are the two that we want to use, and be careful about that space between the is and the null. Now let's go look at a couple of examples out in the Management Studio to help you get your head around how to use nulls actually coded up in your queries. Now what I'm going to do here is, the first thing is, let's just kind of get an idea. Notice I've opened the Management Studio, I've clicked on the new query window to get this up here, and I've, in the drop down, chosen the AdventureWorks 2012 database to make sure we're all on the same page. So let's do something here. Let's select the title column, first name, last name, from person.person. Person is the schema, person is the name of the table, okay? Now, how did I know these columns were there? Well, I could have run a query and seen all the columns, or I can just come over here into the object browser and go down to person.person, and I can look at my columns, and I can see title right there, first name and last name, and so forth. So anyway, I'm going to run this query. Notice I don't have to highlight it since it's the only query, but I want to get you in the habit of that so that you can put multiple queries on here when you're testing and understand how it's working. Whatever I've highlighted when I execute, that is the query that it executes. So I will execute that, and notice here's the title, here's the first name, here's the last name. So Terry Duffy, Rob Waters, Gail Erickson. Gail is an MS, but the other guys don't have a title, so we have null in there. Well, I want to pull a list of everybody who has a title. I don't really care to see all these nulls. So what can we do with that? Well, let's do that a little bit differently. I'm going to select title, first name, last name. Let me keep them looking right here for you. And we'll do that from person.person, except this time we're going to put a where clause on there, where title is not null. Okay, then to make it easy to read, we're going to do an order by. We learned that earlier, and we'll put it to use here. We'll order by last name, then first name. And so I will highlight this query, and actually I should be putting a semicolon on the end of my queries. So we'll talk about semicolons later. Now let's execute that, and notice that I just got those records. I only got 1,009 records here out of the 19,000 and something that's in this table. And here's Mr. Saeed Abbas, Ms. Catherine Abel, Ms. Kim Abercrombie, and you can see that they're in last name order, then by first name order. Notice all the atoms here, how they're in order. We've got the titles on those. So we only selected the ones where the title is not null. Now, if we change that to is null, right, and execute that, you know what's going to happen. We're going to get the remainder of the database where everybody is null in title, because we said where the title is null. Now, I want to show you something here. If I try to put an equal in here where title equals null, notice I didn't get any. Why? Because titles can never be equal to null, because we don't know what null is. So that's a quick look at using nulls in your queries. Just go step by step. Remember, is null, is not null is the way to do a search that includes or excludes nulls in a column result.